everybody. I just realized I didn't even turn on all my lights. I must look so weird. I'll have to go turn on the rest of them. Welcome to Live Q&A AMA. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and I'm here to answer your questions and do what I like to think of as live worldwide mentoring, because you can ask any questions you like and it's totally free to do so. You can ask your questions via deltacx.com/links if you have a longer question or you need to keep it more anonymous, or you can ask it right here in the chat. Just notice it might come up with your name on it and I might say your name, so maybe don't poop on your job or your boss or something like that. Use the anonymous version. Before we jump in, and I did get one question ahead of time, so you will be almost next, I want to thank everybody who is part of our Patreon community. We have a fantastically growing Patreon community, and I've been focusing on Patreon because it removes algorithms. I know that whatever I put up there, you are going to get. Maybe you're not interested in it, that's another story, but nothing's going to block you from seeing it or knowing about it. These are all of our paid Patreon members, but we also have free Patreon members. You can absolutely join Patreon at no cost, and I invite you there, patreon.com/CXCC. Hey, Cherish, good to see you, my tree buddy. Before I get started, I just have a quick message for my husband. Honey, can you please turn on my electric blanket? Yes. And if you are getting up anyway, can you turn on my lights? I forgot to turn on my lights. I probably look a little dark and mysterious. Let's see. There's 1, 2. Thank you, honey. Now I'm bright and shiny and only slightly dark and mysterious. All right. So, again, questions are welcome. Send them in, and send them in however you like. So let's look at our first question. And it was an interesting one, and it looks like this. And it says, as the Mary Poppins of CX and UX, which is what folks call me, you've likely seen a wide variety of issues among your client base. 1, what's your evaluation process at a very high level for assessing the issues? And 2, I'm curious if there are any issues that nearly all clients have, and if so, what is your fix? I realize these are big questions and better suited for a dedicated discussion time. Yes, I see the same things over and over. Yes, I have a way that I go in and assess things. This is what's in my book, Customers Know You Suck. You can check it out at cxcc.to/CKYS, lowercase. So let's take a look at the table of contents for a moment, because again, I can give you the very long answer here, but really I would have to say, please read my book. And when you go to that page, there's ways to get my book full price, cheap, and free. So there's lots of options available to you for the format you prefer and your budget. So for example, Chapter 11, Investigation. This is where I talk about some of the approaches that I use when I'm going into a company and trying to figure out what needs to be improved here, what's going on, and what are our priorities. And of course, I very commonly find a lot of mistakes around customer centricity. I find that we're not focused on users. We're just focused on the business. The business wants money. The business wants customers. Of course it does. We know that. That's not news. That's always floating over us. But what about customers and users? Aren't we more likely to get the business and growth and success that we want when we're creating great stuff and making people happy? So, Chapter 11, Investigation, is kind of what's my evaluation process, and then kind of what are issues. There's stories all throughout the book on the things I see over and over, and they range from bad strategy and no strategy to I tell a story in the book about how I went to a very big company and I said, gee, I've done a little digging. I've learned that there are some Silicon Valley startups that have hundreds of millions of dollars in funding and can't wait to eat our lunch. What's our strategy to handle what might be very new competitors on the horizon. And the response I got from some high-level executives was, "We'll just buy them." And I said, "What if they sell to your competitor?" And I got these blank looks like, that couldn't happen. Of course we'd buy them. And my thought was, how are we not prepared for this? So I see problems from high-level strategy mistakes, unpreparedness for large shifts and competitors, all the way down to the way that individual workers, freelancers, consultants, staff, full-time employees are treated. The way that they were hired, the way that they are worked into teams, the way that they are left out of teams. So really, it's hard for me to say this is the list of what I always see. It's all the things. Gestures broadly. It's really all the things. I see there's a lot of common things. There's a lot of bad strategy or no strategy. There's a lot of bad process or confusing or no process. There's a lot of product first and feature factory. Hey, let's just go with my idea. Hey, I think I have a good solution. Hey, the business wants us to build this feature. There's a lot of feature factory and product first. Let's just make product, make more stuff. Turn on the factory. There's a lot of that, which tends to produce a lot of failures. Failures where the customer isn't happy, where the customer didn't do what we wanted them to do. So there's business failures, customer failures, and then there's a lot of excuses. Well, that's good product management. Failure is good. We are learning from failure, really, such as... so there's, and then there's no accountability. I see lots of no accountability. Lots of companies who aren't holding people responsible or accountable even for knowingly making bad decisions. This person knew this thing was probably going to fail. They did it anyway. They're not in any trouble. No problem. They can have budget. They can have whatever they want. Sometimes they even get promoted. So there's a lot of problems that I see over and over, and that's why I wrote that book. It's almost like you set me up for this. I owe you one. I don't know who sent this in. You didn't set me up for this, but honestly, it's why I wrote the book. Oh, and by the way, if you, like me, enjoy a soft, comfortable hoodie, that just might have your second favorite book cover on it, because I'm assuming you have a more favorite book. Maybe it's Larry Marine's Disruptive Research, which is not available in hoodie form, but my book is. You can go to deltacx.shop if you want to shop for some of our fun stuff that has some of our wacky catchphrases on it. That will all be there. Any questions or thoughts from our live viewers? I know we've got some on YouTube and some on LinkedIn, probably a couple on Twitch. We do broadcast there as well. Gonna see if there's anything in the, what's this? Oh yeah, our new Discord, our CXCC Discord has some cool features that will notify you when we've got new articles and new videos. Though again, if you are in the paid Patreon, you'll get those 2 weeks before everybody else. So that's kind of one of the perks. And the paid Patreon starts at $1 American a month. So that will be affordable for some people and not for others. I get it. But we also have the free Patreon. That was the only question I got so far. So let's take it off the screen. And while we wait to see if other questions go, oh, good, it's Sharon. Sharon, we keep meeting like this. That was my question, and you're bringing up a really great point about the value of CX research as a continual feed into the product roadmap. Yeah, absolutely. If you read, I think it's either chapter 18 or 20 in my book, I talk about getting away from the feature factory and making sure that our CX, UX, and product strategy, more overarching, as well as down into some of the more tactical work, is fed by evidence, data, and knowledge. I've got some new graphics. Let's see let's see how they're looking. Maybe I can hit would number 3 work? Let's try 3. Oh, no, 3 replaces the chat. Okay, let's put the chat back. Let's try 2. Boing. So we want to make sure, and this is something a lot of companies aren't doing, that we want to make sure any opinions, guesses, or assumptions that we have, that we've collected them, possibly through our quadrant exercise, which was episode 196 on YouTube, turn them into evidence, data, and knowledge so that they can better inform us to make, hold on, new graphic. So you have to hit number 2. Oh, no. Better strategies, better priorities, and better decisions. And that's what it's going to take. We're just going to have to do better and know more. Where we haven't been pursuing better evidence, data, and knowledge, chances are our strategies, priorities, and decisions range from iffy to weak to flawed to risky to wasteful. Yikes! So we need to be continually feeding our teams and our company good evidence, data, and knowledge so that we can make better, pointing in the wrong direction, strategies. This is so hard. Why? This is 4.5 years now. I'm still pointing in the wrong direction. Strategies, priorities, and decisions. Let's press number 2. I've got numbers on my screen, and they have to do with how things animate in. So that is why I'm saying 2 means nothing to all of you. So, yeah, thank you for that. I'll add that to our YouTube description that I'll probably put up tomorrow because I'm going to fall right into bed today after our show. And let's see what else is cooking. Do I have any questions? No. Okay, so let's, while we wait for questions, because sometimes people are typing, I'm going to take a look at cxcc.to/events and tell you about some of our super events that are coming up, including one starring the fantastic Sharon Rylander, who just asked that question. Tomorrow, we have someone who I think is popular on LinkedIn, but for some of you, you may be hot and cold on this person, but let's get to know him better. It is Thomas Wilson. He will be joining us at 3 p.m. Italy time, 9 a.m. New York time, to talk about service design. So shouldn't be too spicy. We're going to focus really on what is service design and what does a service designer do as part of our My Job series. After that, we've got Critical Thinking Stream Friday night. That's usually over on our Delta CX channel, not on the CXCC channel. Some people said it was too ranty and they didn't want it over here. Monday, February 26th is our webinar on UX at Startups, which is starring Sharon Rylander. I hope I'm pronouncing your name okay, and Raf Dumeo. And we're going to learn more about, that's part of our My Job series, and we're going to learn more about what it's like to do and lead UX at a startup. Tuesday, of course, will be more AMA like today. I usually do this every Tuesday, but at different times, sometimes 3 p.m. Italy time, sometimes 11 p.m. Italy time. So today it is 11. It's actually a quarter after 11 now. And I have to change out my dog's collar for sleeping. Then let's see. Wednesday the 28th, we've got another webinar. This is going to be the first in a 2-webinar series with that Dr. Giles helped me book. We're going to be talking about healthcare. But again, you can see all of this at cxcc.to/events. People say to me, I don't know when stuff's going to happen. Yes, you do. Just check out the events calendar, and you can also check out our new CXCC Discord, which is free to join and read. But if you want to post anything, that's for our paid Patreon members, again, starting at $1 a month. But you can read stuff there, and you can get little Discord notifications when we post new videos, new events, and new articles. So we're really using those bots to their best, whatevers. So, hey, if we don't have any other questions today, we can just wind down early with our 2 questions and just call it a day. Somehow my show countdown didn't show up. What? Oh, is that because it was number 2? That's what's number 2. Okay, I'm going to have to work on my overlays. Oops. Yeah, so we could have 40 more minutes together, but if people just don't have questions today, that's totally fine. I answer a lot of questions all the time in our Slack and Discord communities, which again are free to join. Actually, those links will be at deltacx.com/links. And I'm here every Tuesday broadcasting live, and then this is archived on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, CX-CC. So I'll give it a few more minutes I wish there was Ana Lucia is typing. I don't know if any of you are working on questions to me, so I don't know if I'm missing something. But we'll give it a few more minutes just in case. Otherwise, we will wind it down and say, see you tomorrow. Note that some of our events are in Google Meet and not broadcast live, and some of them are live here on YouTube. So always check where the heck they are. Okay. All right, I'm just going to give you a few more minutes, see if anybody has a question, and if not, we will light the screen on fire and call it a night. I can't put in any music because I would get a copy strike on Twitch and on YouTube. So imagine a song you like. Oh, yeah. Also tomorrow, if anybody's awake at 1 p.m. Italy time, which would be 7 in the morning New York time, I will be, hopefully, successfully, it's not been going well, live streaming on a different Twitch channel with my live karaoke. So join the Apiary Studio on Twitch if you want to join my karaoke adventures. Okay, I'm thinking people don't have other questions today. Totally fine. Sometimes we are... Oh, I have questions on information architecture. All right, we've got a question. I will hang around a few more minutes and see what's going on here. All right, let me add it to what will be our YouTube description. Cherish says, I have questions on information architecture. I haven't done any research and I haven't received any training on it. Would you be able to explain types of IA problems and types of research that exist? Sure. I probably can't give you the exhaustive list because IA is so kind of pervasive. And how's the weather? Not bad. It was a little cool today, but it's almost spring-like here. We've barely had winter, and that's weird. Okay, let's put up this question. And that's how the weather is. You can also Google it. You know, LinkedIn says I'm near Olbia. You can look up the weather in Olbia, Italy. But I'm happy to tell you that it's not too wintry here. So let's talk about not the weather. Let's talk about information architecture. So information architecture is shows up in a lot of places. At its core, it tends to be taxonomies, hierarchies, and then lots of things relating to information. So how are things structured? How do we label things? How do things have meaning to people? And so this type of stuff tends to fall into information architecture. Some of this is going to be databases and how we create a database with different categories or metadata so that information makes sense to people and it's easy for them to find. Information architecture, from what I understand, and I could be wrong, grew out of library sciences. When I was first starting in UX, people were coming into UX with degrees in library sciences. That was common. Now we would think like, what? Library sciences? What you gonna do with that? But, 15-ish years ago when I was moving from some of my consulting work into more traditional UX jobs, that was common. I didn't have that degree, and that was pretty interesting. And some people's jobs were just information architect. And so some of it has to do, again, with database structure, structuring information, metadata. How can we make sure people can find things? Crazy factoid on library sciences. Yeah, it's a thing. Dewey Decimal System, there is information architecture. There's your taxonomies and catalogs and structures. So you can see how there is a cousin there. Then information architecture is also seen in how we name things and how things make sense to people. So some of that ends up being organization. Some of that ends up being content-based. We also have, again, when we think structure and organization, I would say structure and organization, some of the most common times we think about information architecture is navigating a website or an app or a system is how do we get around it? How do we structure our menu? What are the choices? What are the sub-choices of the choices? And so, for example, I've got an Uno deck that we were just playing Uno this weekend, hashtag not sponsored. And I bought this Uno deck to help me teach people about information architecture. And I got a Finding Dory Uno deck because you had, if you know Uno, the card game, you've got numbers. So maybe I organize all the numbers together. Let's put all the ones together. You can organize in Uno by colors. Okay, put all the greens together. In some of the Disney and Pixar decks, like the Finding Dory deck, there are characters on the cards. Some of the characters have octopus guy, Hank. I don't remember characters' names. I'm not that into Disney movies, but octopus guy. You could organize the cards by the animal or creature that's on them. So there's all different ways that information can be organized, and the way it's going to be best for your digital experience, or maybe even non-digital, whatever it is to make sure you understand. I know, surprise, surprise. Here we go with research again. Understand how people perceive this. This is when we often end up talking about things like mental models and how do people perceive this information? How would organizing it make sense to them? Cherish says, follow-up question. Do you have a history on hiding everything into a hamburger menu? Or why IA is the way it is today, especially for mobile apps? Sure. So let's answer the rest of this question first, and then we'll shift to that one. So can we talk about IA problems and research that exists? So some of the most common research you'll hear about, and it's certainly not the only, but some of the most common research you'll hear about related to IA is card sorting and tree testing. So typically in a card sort, we have some sort of structure, hierarchy, organization, menus, or something else. And we're not sure how people would organize these things. We're not sure what they would see as top things and sub things of top things, and so on. So for example, throw them an Uno deck. Are they going to organize things by color, by number, by character, by something else? So think about taxonomy of foods. Are we going to sort foods by color, by nutritional value, by price, by type of food that it is? So there are so many ways to take a large set of things and sort them, sometimes hierarchically, into categories, subcategories, sometimes sub-subcategories, etc. So we have card sorting as one way to try to have our users be involved, or our target audience, to try to figure out how would they organize these things. Now, the downside to card sorting is usually you've given them the cards. And so there is the inherent bias that you've decided what the cards are. You've said the cards are broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, carrots, pumpkin. Depending upon what this is, someone might say, pumpkin, I don't call that pumpkin. I call it orange squash. Why does that say pumpkin? That's the wrong word. What does that even mean? Now we've already got this a little bit biased. We may or may not be even using the words that people would use for these things. That's also information architecture. So card sorting has good things and bad things about it. I have used it. I've had good success with it, but it's imperfect. Scientifically, fish isn't a very helpful category, but it is for the general public. Definitely, Drew, as someone allergic to fish, it is a word I say a lot because I am allergic to all fish. And that one's easy for me. I am not allergic to crustaceans. So I always like to say if it has fins and does this, I can't eat it. So for me, that's a really easy way to describe it. But again, that might not make sense depending upon what you're doing. If you're the fish market, you can't just say, welcome, we have fish. Usually a fish market has little sections in their glass case where they've grouped different types of sea life that is available for sale. So we often see like here they sell a lot of octopus and they eat the octopus. It's not just a movie character, and that might be near other sea life that they think is somehow similar. I'm going to be working on my first card sorting exercise. I'm concerned about how the exercise being worded will influence how the cards are sorted, for sure. That's what I was just saying. Now, we do have a couple of videos on the old Delta CX YouTube channel that will talk about this. So type in Delta CX card sorting or Delta CX unmoderated research, and you'll get a couple of the videos we did in the micro lessons playlist. But you're absolutely right. The way you word things can skew things. You know, if we were card sorting colors just for practice, obviously if I call something light blue, medium blue, and dark blue, someone's probably going to make a category called blue. And they're going to put these as sub things of blue. But what if we had named those colors something else? Would they still do that? What if we had named it ocean? Many people think the ocean is blue, but would they categorize it somewhere else? Or would they think of the ocean as being green-blue? So I think that you're right. But again, it's imperfect. So you just have to do your best and try to figure out the right wording for things. It's very hard to give people a card sort where even the cards don't have words. It's kind of not a thing. But I do recommend not doing a closed card sort where not only do you have the words on the cards, but you've decided the categories. Boom. I like to let people decide the categories. Sometimes I give them a couple of starter categories that we know we're going to include, but in general, I don't. One time I ran what we call a hybrid card sort. And one of the categories I gave people ahead of time was something like, I don't want this on the screen at all. And we were just curious because we know if we give people a bunch of cards, they'll sort them. But what if there was something on the website that people already know? I never use this thing. I don't even want to see it in the menu, or I don't want to see it on the page. I think we were dealing with things that were going to be on a page and how people would group them. And so we had a category that was like, I don't want to see this on the page, or I don't need this, or I don't use this. I forgot how we worded it. It was some years ago, almost 4 years ago. And we found almost half the cards got put in by one person or another. Almost half the cards ended up in, I don't want this, I'm not going to use this. And it really started making us think about how, oh, I've got a cursor on my face, how this client might benefit from some personalization or customization. Sure, Larry reminds us that sometimes that's not the best way to go and that you want to go with a more best practices approach. But based on how big this client's target audience was and what they were doing, it would have been very hard to say everybody has to do this one way. And we thought it would have been good for the page to have some customization where people could change the layout or could say, I never need to see this. I never do this. Hide this. Make this page simpler for me. Get rid of it. So don't be afraid to get a little creative with it and include something like that if it is possible for this to be excluded. Otherwise, people will sort everything because they're good little robots, and you'll say, see, they needed everything. They sorted it all. Then we also have tree testing. Tree testing takes an existing hierarchy or structure, and it asks people, if you were trying to do a certain task, where in this hierarchy or structure would you go to find it? And that can certainly reveal information architecture mistakes. As an example, many years ago, not recently, Axure had redesigned their website. I think some of you know that I train people on Axure. I still like Axure. They had redesigned their site where they do have a list of trainers who they recommend, and I'm happily on that list. They redesigned the website and they moved the trainers page to be a sub-page of community. And they had a page called training, but it was some of their tutorials and did not lead to you finding the outside trainers, even the ones that they recommended, like me. Well, I saw my business drop instantly. I lost wild amounts of money because that was back in the days when Acture was very popular and I could make some good money running training. And after a couple of months, I just couldn't stand the losses anymore, and I paid to run a tree test. I reproduced the hierarchy and structure from the Acture website with training and community and the whole thing. And I gave people a task. I gave 30 people a task, and I made sure that they worked in UX, so I recruited and the whole thing. And I said, you are interested in learning how to use Acture from a professional instructor. Like, I was trying to not use the word training. I think I tried. I don't remember. But, where would you go to find Acture's list of recommended instructors? And everybody went straight to training. Nobody went to community. 30 out of 30 people went straight to training and said, this is the answer. And I sent it to Acture. And I said, you're killing my business. Which is also bad for you, because then people aren't learning how to do the things. So they did change their website. And that helped me a little bit until it didn't, So, but yes, so that tree test really proved that that structure caused people to not be able to find something that they were trying to find. How am I doing? Did I get, let's see, I think there was another question. It's not about fish. Hold on. Okay. Do you have a history of hiding everything into a hamburger menu? Or why IA is the way it is today, especially for mobile apps? So, great question. So why is it the way it is today? It's hard to say. I am not against a hamburger menu. I think we do need some way to condense a large structure for the purposes of mobile. And certainly remember that before our phones were this big, they were significantly smaller. I've got some of them in my drawer. They were in some cases half the size. So you didn't have a lot of real estate to work from. So the idea that a menu could be condensed into what we now call the hamburger menu, the 3 lines, or in some cases a more menu, the 3 dots, often going this way, sometimes going this way, makes sense. Makes sense because the menu is not something you're constantly using. So for example, let me open up YouTube. That's not YouTube. Let me open up my YouTube app, and of course, let me completely embarrass myself. Here we go. So this is my YouTube, and we can see that there's lots of stuff here. Disregard some of the green screening. My phone is not see-through. So look at the navigation. I've got 5 things going on the bottom, and I've got at least 3 things going on at the top. But if I press the icon of me at the bottom, I end up going into a system that has more sub choices. It has a settings gear icon. So there's layers of stuff in here. But when we first look at this, we need this simplified. We can't give people every choice. We have to make a decision of what is going to be surfaced and most easily discoverable versus what we're going to hide one tap or click away or more taps or clicks away. So for example, if I click subscriptions, oh look, it's me. Hi everybody, I'm live. I hope you're watching my show. If I click subscriptions, there are things that are still a few taps away, even though getting here gets me pretty close to what I might be looking for, which is show me what's going on with the people I subscribe to. Of course, I subscribe to myself to double check everything's working well, because this is not my Delta CX account. It's my secret personal YouTube account. So there's that. Of course, if you click the plus button, I would be going live or posting a short or a video, and there's going to be more steps there. So we have to make these organizational decisions. So YouTube decided on the bottom, which is closest to your thumb. So a lot of people hold their phone with two hands like this. I have a pop socket, hashtag not sponsored. So I tend to hold my phone with one hand. I've got kind of big hands. So we've got home, shorts, a plus button, which means you want to post something, subscriptions, and you, which is honestly a cornucopia of wacky stuff, which is a good reminder that the information architecture under you is a little funky because it's my history, it's my playlists, it's my videos, it's my downloads, it's my movies, it's time watched analytics, it's switch account, Google account, turn on incognito. This is like miscellaneous crap that didn't get into the information architecture very well. But also at the top of the screen, they have their logo for their icon for casting this to another device. They have notifications, and they have a search button. And so someone had to decide, these are the things that live in the interface, easy to get to, and especially we want the things on the bottom to be super easy to get to because that's where we're usually closest with the thumb for people holding with one hand or two. And then we have a couple of more secondary actions that we'll put at the top that they might not be able to reach with their thumb. They might have to take a finger and tap that. Again, assuming accessibility, assuming they can see these things, having hands, things like that. So there are definitely some lessons we can learn by looking at some of the apps and systems we use and thinking about, what kinds of decisions did people make here for the structure? Does it make sense for things to be in a hamburger menu, or should they be more exposed like we saw in YouTube? I'm not sure YouTube has great information architecture. I think they've added so many things at this point that it probably needs a fresh look. So yeah, take a look at some of the apps and things you have on your phone. Notice when they're using hamburger menus and what's in them. And notice when things aren't in a hamburger menu. Maybe they're more not exposed, but discoverable in the interface, or more persistent. You don't have to go into the hamburger menu to find them. Is that helping? Or did you fall asleep? Is this now information architecture ASMR? So I'm just checking, but I think it's the way it is because it's an opportunity to get a large structure and sometimes a hierarchic structure into a small and limited space. I am not for putting a mobile-style hamburger menu on a website. I don't think that's the right paradigm. I think that's not good for accessibility. But I think a hamburger menu on an app or a mobile experience can make sense because it takes something people might not use heavily, but makes it available to them while allowing the full structure to be there, even though they might have to use some interesting, tapping into menus to go deeper into the structure. All right, so we've spent some time on information architecture today. Super helpful, thank you. Helps to know how you think about it, how you've done IA research in the past, and reviewing and explaining YouTube experiences, helpful context. Yes. Sometimes I talk about the system that I use to run these shows. And if you want to talk about not great information architecture, because I love these people, but not great. So this is what I'm looking at. Let's take the question off the screen. So what do I have that looks like there's any kind of hierarchy or structure here? It's tough. I've got some settings, and of course the settings have some sub-choices. So that's got some information architecture. I've got some buttons up here. New, open, save as. Not strong with information architecture. I've got some buttons and settings down at the bottom where you see some red lights. Yeah, that's rough looking. Yeah, this is how I run my shows. See the behind the scenes on the Patreon. So I've got let me make your comments go away for a moment. So now I've got spam emails. Thank you very much, because I'm sharing my screen. So down here, there's more buttons, and these have some choices. And then look at these guys in the bottom right corner. This is even more stuff that I can control. So some of you know I set off effects from my phone. This view shortcuts is how I set that up. So what is the information architecture and structure of a system like this? I think that their approach was get as much available in the interface as possible. Don't have people digging for stuff beneath clicks, beneath menus. There's very few menus here other than like settings. So that's a design decision someone made, and for better or for worse, you know, we can talk about the pros and cons of it. And I think there are pros and cons, because if you think about the usage of a system like what I've got, this is vMix, hashtag not sponsored. I pay them, they don't pay me. I do like vMix a lot. But who's using vMix? Well, from what I've learned, their target audience, in addition to YouTubers, is mostly churches who run multi-camera worship and services, sometimes broadcasting on Facebook or live streaming their church services, and also TV stations, whether those are real TV stations or sometimes the internal TV station of a university or college or high school. Sometimes vMix is being used by sports broadcasters at universities and high schools, so that they can come in with lots of cameras, on-screen graphics with scores, and all that stuff. So in that case, you might think you need to have all the buttons available, right? But hold on. You know that I run the show sometimes from my phone. A lot of people are running it from a touchscreen or an Elgato, or I'm going to pronounce that wrong, or some of these other things. So then does it all have to be on the screen? I'm not touching all these buttons all the time. So it's a really interesting question when you think about information architecture and you think about, you know, should this be laid out differently? Which of these buttons would we hide under something else? Or is that going to cause problems for people who might need fast and easy access to some of these buttons and features? That's, again, where early, generative, qualitative research is important. We need to know our target audience. If the target audience are TV studios and religious organizations broadcasting or recording these things, what works best for them? How do they do this now? What do they need in this interface? What are they doing from other interfaces that connect with this? We've got to know this so that we can make the best decisions. I made information architecture decisions when I put this stuff up on the screen. I put some stuff over here, tried to balance it out with a little stuff over here, put some stuff over here. These are information architecture decisions as well, because I've got information and I've decided where it's going to go on the screen, how big it should be, and is there a hierarchy, or is there a reason some things are bigger or smaller? So these are all decisions. And when we know a few things about information architecture, these decisions might be more deliberate. When we're not as familiar with information architecture, there will still be information architecture. It just might not be great or room for improvement. You know, I changed how all this looks last year. There's always room for improvement. Maybe you don't like the way my screen's laid out now. We could change it. So that's why there's a lot to think about in these systems, you know, whether it's a website or an app or a SaaS system or a program like you just saw. These are the things that designers have to think about. I don't think vMix has designers, and that's okay. I think that's working for them. You know, I didn't choose vMix for its beauty. I choose it for its functionality and how much it does. I recently tried out one of the competitors because I thought it was going to solve a problem I was having, and that thing just didn't do enough. So I tend to be function over form, and I tend to be, I'm an Android user. I'd rather have something that does everything with every possible option and customization than something that does less. And that's my choice. Other people make other choices. So that, I'm a good target user for vMix. Also, vMix is Windows only, and I happen to be on Windows happily, and so that works out as well. We've done a great job talking about information architecture. You can also read the famous Polar Bear book, the Information Architecture book from O'Reilly. Hey, Deb, this is a weird year to see you do a show at. Yes, I assume you mean time of day and not year. It's late for you. It's so late for you. You said a wacky word. Hold on, we'll put up the comment. I forgot to put it back up. Ralitza, it's weird to see you. Go to sleep. You probably have a long commute tomorrow. Yes. I've been doing shows at 3 p.m. my time and 11 p.m. my time because my work hours generally fall between 4 p.m. my time and 11 p.m. my time. And so to not take time away from my current day job, which I am enjoying, it is late. Good. Get to sleep, you. I will be rolling into bed soon myself. I can't cover my mouth when I yawn because of my my camera filter. Puts fake lips over my hand because that's part of my camera filter, is to give my lips a little bit of color. Ana Lucia, would you mind if I asked a hypothetical question? Yes, of course. All questions are welcome here. They do not have to be on a certain topic. I once had someone ask me a religious question, and I once had somebody ask me, I'll give my opinion on anything, but sure, ask anything. I don't make any guarantee about the quality of the answer. I only promise that I will try. Meanwhile, let's try to get the recording of my last coaching session to the person I had it with. Always happy to see my regulars. Okay, send that over while I wait for your hypothetical question. Crackle, crackle, crackle. All right. I guess you're still typing it, so we will wait for your hypothetical question. What else am I missing? Hey, how's the weather where all of you are? I'm working from home tomorrow. Excellent. Fantastic. Happy to hear it. I'm still waiting for Ana Lucia's interesting question, and then we will have to wind down for the night. It's half of our bedtimes, right? Hi from Melbourne. Yay! That's part of the reason I'm doing these shows so late. I want to get our Melbourne friends waking up. It's 9:49 a.m. It's 9:49 a.m. in Melbourne, Australia. And you're listening to Delta CX Live, taking your questions for another few more minutes. Cold in Utah, heading to Arizona Thursday. Should be nice and warm. Yeah, I heard it's been rainy down there. So, bring your rain gear. Ana Lucia, are you typing something? Ana Lucia, I want to ask people, I've seen people sharing some mixed opinions about remote onboarding. Some people say it's impossible to do onboarding of insert area here remotely. I love you for doing this. Sure. Thanks, Mickey. Good to see you. I want to ask people to go on site for this matter. What's your thoughts, especially for UX? Okay, let's get this question on the screen. And I'll piece together your your 2 comments. I know YouTube cuts things off. Thank you for doing that. Let's press all the buttons. Okay, here we go. So, do I think you can onboard for a new job remotely, or should you go on site? So that's hard to say. It should always be done a certain way. I've done both. At my current job, I was onboarded remotely. A remote job I had in 2014, I think some of it I had to go to the office, but not all of it. And they did fly me in. This also brings up questions about travel. So hopefully if they do expect you to go to an office for some sort of onboarding or training or introduction, did you already talk about that? Are you expecting that? And hopefully they've got to be paying for it. You should not be paying for that at all. $0, euros, or whatever you spend. So I would hope that that's been talked about ahead of time, and I hope that it's been worked out kind of how that's going to be paid for. So do I think you have to be onboarded in person? I think that there were many companies back in the day, 10 or so years ago, where you went through an in-person onboarding because they did a lot of the corporate training in rooms and you had to physically be there to do it. So you would get like security training, don't give out your password and don't sexually harass people training. And there were a couple of jobs I had where the company was on the stock market. So there were don't do insider trading training. And so sometimes these companies want to make sure you've had that training. They insist that it be on site in order for whatever are their internal compliance rules. Sometimes they are flying in other people. They want you to meet more of the team. I don't think these things are bad. Again, as long as you talked about them, you knew you were going to be traveling, and they're paying for all of it. All of it, all of it. No money should come out of your pocket for a muffin or a cup of coffee. Do I think it's necessary? No. The job I'm at now completely onboarded me remotely. We did everything remotely. IT got my computer set up. Now, I'm not using a computer from work. I'm using my own computer, but IT helped me get set up with the email and the remote login and the two-factor authentication stuff on my phone when I have to verify that it's really me trying to log in. And all of that was done remotely. The trainings I had to take were on a website that tracked who I was and if I went through the trainings and things like that. And so it's either way. It's either way. I think it's fine either way. I don't think onboarding has to happen any one way. I think that in-person can be good if that works for everybody, and if you have accessibility needs, you can still travel comfortably. If you can't travel comfortably, they shouldn't make you travel, and that should have been something you've already talked about. So, am I answering your question? Am I close? Is this what you were thinking about? I hope so. Sorry for the quiet air there. But anyway, hopefully that was what you wanted to talk about. It's really it depends, but I certainly think that you can do, we can work remotely. You can onboard remotely. The downside is, how do you get equipment? Are they, if you are working remotely, how do you get a computer? How do you get a chair? How do you get a table? Or what are they supplying for you? Sometimes it's just a computer. Sometimes there's more stuff. Sometimes a computer and an extra screen. You should not be paying for it. If the job is asking you to pay for those and they'll pay you back later, the job is a scam. The job should be paying for those and sending them to you. Do not pay for them. Rainy but mild in the Bay Area. Yeah, I remember those days. All right, let's wind this down and everyone go to sleep or have a great rest of your day. I'll see everybody or some people tomorrow at 3 p.m. for Thomas Wilson's show on service design. That will be recorded in Google Meet. It goes straight to our paid Patreon members. for 2 weeks, and then it will be available to the public. So if you miss it and you're not part of the paid Patreon, you'll see it in 2 weeks. Just make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'll be there. Thanks everybody for your interesting questions today. I had some fun. Hope you did as well. Yes, sweet dreams and good night. And I'm going to light some fire on the screen and tell everybody, see you soon. Thanks again.